In this episode of the Path to Success podcast, I sit down with notorious Houston lipstick artist, Katherine Mason. Katherine is a prime example of how pursuing your passion and giving back to the community can actually create great income. She began her career in advertising, then started a small clothing business with a partner from college before breaking off into her own creative venture that supports women and families battling breast cancer. Join us as we dive deep into some of the following topics: debunking the starving artist and overnight success, the role of art and creativity in healing, the loneliness and sacrifice in building a business, misconceptions in the word gifted or talented, evoking emotion and vulnerability for connection, and the definitions of beauty. If you're looking for inspiring stories of resilience, the power of mindset, or how to turn your creative pursuits into a profitable career, don't miss this opportunity to learn from Katherine Mason's journey. Tune in to the Path to Success. Well, excellent. Well, this morning we have Katherine Mason in the podcast studio to explore her individual path to success. And Katherine, I'll do a quick intro. I actually found out who you were whenever I was stalking the Shaftel Diamonds Instagram page, and I saw this beautiful piece of artwork.
Thank you.
And this lovely lady just painting with lipstick. And I said, who is this person? I need to know who she is. But anyways, that was probably about a month ago, and you and I started talking business strategy back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's whenever I came up with the idea. I said, hey, would you like to come on the podcast, The Path to Success? And so it didn't take much arm twisting.
No.
You said that you've been looking to come on to some podcasts to share your story and your mission. But yeah, kind of in 60 seconds or less, just give us a little overview on who you are, what you do, and kind of what led you to here today.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, great intro. My name is Katherine Mason. I am a Houston-based artist, full-time artist, and I paint with lipstick. So obviously lipstick is a very unique medium, and everyone always asks, why lipstick? How'd you get started? We had a really good family friend back in 2013, 2014, who was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she had mentioned to me that one of the hardest things about her breast cancer journey was going through all of these physical side effects. Aside from her hair falling out, there are a lot of other things through going through chemo and radiation. And she really, really struggled to feel beautiful again, to feel empowered, and to feel like she had some sort of control over her situation. And what she started doing was she started putting lipstick on before all of her chemo and radiation treatments. And that was her one way of kind of taking that beauty back and saying, I am a woman, I am powerful, I've got this. And it was also something that her doctors had recommended that she find something to focus on that made her feel positive and optimistic. And since she started putting on the lipsticks, her body was actually responding better to treatment.
Wow.
Because the mind and the body are so interconnected. And because she was in a better state of mind, her body was, following through with that. And I just thought it was so interesting that something as small as a tube of lipstick could make such a big difference. And I took that concept and I wanted to expand on it visually. So I kept thinking, as an artist, well, lipstick is really similar to an oil pastel or a crayon. Maybe there's some way I can work with it. And I had some leftover lipsticks in my bathroom. So I pulled those out of my drawers and started painting. And, over time, developed my series. And all the lipsticks that I use now are all donated to me, which is a big aspect of the work. A lot of people will donate in honor and in memory of family members and friends, which makes the series super impactful. I get a lot of donations from relatives of women who've passed from breast cancer, and they gather her lipsticks and they send it to me to use. So it's been a really, really great series to work on. I've met so many incredible people. It's been very fulfilling, and I sell my work to raise money for the National Breast Cancer Foundation. So 20% of my sales goes back to them.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that story.
Course.
I'd always wondered because I'd never seen anybody paint with lipstick before.
Yeah.
And so what you're telling me is it's something that you adopted maybe in 2014. So you haven't always painted with lipstick.
No.
What happened with that original piece? Do you still have that today? Your very first expedition into painting with lipstick?
Yes. So
can I buy it?
Yes, you're more than welcome to buy it.
She's like, it's in a storage unit in Conroe, Texas.
Yeah. So there are, my exploration phase was when I was first just playing around with the lipsticks to see if they were even a viable
You were lipstick
medium.
curious is what you're saying.
I was very curious. And I was wanting to see if it was a medium that I could even manipulate in the way I wanted to. So those first rough drawings and sketches are the ugliest thing you've ever seen. I keep those hidden in locked doors. Like
it's like my 3-year-old in pre-K just making little things.
Probably worse. Yeah, it's not cute. So I keep those hidden. But my very first actual original lipstick painting, I still have. It's still for sale. And it is one of my favorite paintings. So
that's amazing. So is it for sale in your studio? Tell me about that. Where is your studio?
So I work out of Silver Street Studios, which is here in Houston. It's right off of Washington Avenue and Taylor Street.
By B&B over there.
Yes. So it's a really cool place to work. My studio is a showroom and a workspace. And, in the contract, they specifically say you cannot live here or else I would be living there. I'm there all the time.
That's the thing that you have to manage with artists, right?
Yes.
Because I think the terminology of starving artists, it exists for a reason,
absolutely,
right?
yes.
It's definitely not something that at a very young age, anybody thinks that they're actually going to make money with it, right? So it's inspiring to see that you've actually left your corporate career to pursue your passion as an income generator. And so tell us about, when you first became interested in art. At what age was it? Were you any good? Was it something that you had to work really, really hard at to get great at? Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, so I've always been a super, super creative kid. We moved all the time. I moved probably every 2 years with my brothers, and art was my way of kind of documenting my changing surroundings. So I always have these memories of me doodling and drawing all the time. And so it was something that I had in me as a child. And then through grade school, you had to pick electives. You're either in theater or you're in choir or in art. So I'm not going to sing. I sure as hell I'm not going to act. So I'm like, I'm going to do art. That's something that I feel comfortable with. So over time, I just grew into this, developing this love for art and creativity. And, but once I got to the high school level, I didn't really know if art was what I wanted to do when I, going into college. And, I ended up getting an art scholarship to the University of Oklahoma up in Norman. And unfortunately, the school, my freshman year, they had bumped me up because I had taken a bunch of AP classes. So they bumped me up probably to mid-program, and then they had changed their policy that summer without telling me. So when I got to school, they had me in all beginners classes. Okay. So I hated it so much.
They were like remedial courses for you. You weren't being challenged enough.
Not at all. Okay. Not at all. So I wasn't going to class. I was failing out of all of my art classes. And luckily, by the grace of God, one of my drawing teachers was, pulled me aside after class and he's like, "You're failing." I'm like, "Well, I know because I'm miserable and I'm not being challenged." And he said, "I've talked to all of your instructors and professors, and what we're going to do is we've decided to give you assignments outside of the curriculum because we know that you're past this stage and we can't have you fail because you're good enough to where you shouldn't be failing." And so on the weekends, I would spend all of my time at their personal studios working on separate assignments that they would give me. As a freshman.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So instead of partying, which I still found time to do, I was, spending a lot of time working on these projects. And unfortunately, by the end of my freshman year, I was really burnt out. And so I went pre-med. I really wanted to get into surgery, did that for a while. And then I had some health issues. And long story short, I ended up going into advertising and marketing once I finished graduation. Okay. So it was still a creative field. But like you had mentioned earlier, I had always heard from people growing up like, "Oh my God, beautiful art. You're so talented." But don't become a starving artist, and it was like all the time I heard that. So in my mind, I thought art as a career path is not viable. It's not something where I can generate enough income to support myself. So I was trying to find something that had a creative outlet to it where my artistic mind could still be at play, but I could make a living. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I went into advertising and I thought it was going to be this really awesome creative endeavor. And it was polar opposite. You're pitching to clients who are not creative at all. And they like to stick with their comfort zone and the same thing they've done every year. And so I felt like my wheels were just turning and I wasn't really going anywhere.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that even, 10 years ago, whenever you decided to choose art as a career, the landscape has changed significantly with the development of just digital media. And now AI can generate inspirational, amazing art pieces, right? So tell us about kind of like your journey in the crossroads that you had reached and how you had the confidence to start your career as art as a profession, not just a hobby.
Okay.
When did you have that comfort level? Did you have a certain number in the bank? Was there a spouse that was motivating you to do it? Tell us about that story.
Yeah, so I guess I have to back up just slightly. I missed a little sliver in there in between graduation and advertising.
Okay.
I started a small business with a really good friend of mine who went off into the NFL. We wanted to do a clothing company.
Ooh, do I know the person?
Kenny Stills.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a really, really good friend of
Excellent.
mine. Yeah,
Okay.
so we did a company together out of college. It was kind of like a streetwear brand for men. And he did all the financing and all of the, making connections and all that stuff, getting the manufacturing figured out. And then I did all of the creative, all the day-to-day, basically everything else. So I had a massive crash course in entrepreneurship and running a small business, and I fell in love with it. Obviously, through his career in the NFL, he got busier and busier and busier. I got more and more and more busy myself, but very overwhelmed with the workload. And I had asked him, can I hire some people on to help me? And at that point, I don't think he was very trusting of a lot of other people. So I told him, listen, the company was very successful, but I said, I can't continue because I'm kind of just drowning at this point. So if this isn't something you're ready for right now, that's fine. I'm going to give you the whole company. You can keep everything, but I have to go find something where I can start, making a living for myself. So from that point, because I had that small business and I had learned all that stuff about entrepreneurship, once I finished with advertising, my cousin had mentioned to me, she's like, you have to go back to art. Because everyone I think my friends, my family knew that I was craving that artistic release. And she said, take everything you learned with Kenny, everything about business, everything about entrepreneurship, and build that same thing around your art. That's your business. That's your dream. Treat it like a business. And so I just kind of took it from there. When I first started out, I was still living at my parents' house in my bedroom, painting out of my bedroom and, selling work on the side. And, you ask when the confidence was there, and it's one of these things where I can't really pinpoint when it was. I just knew that it was something I loved to do. And I knew that at some point I had to get a professional studio, because obviously optics are so big when it comes to selling anything. And in order to build my client base, I needed to make sure that I wasn't meeting, clients and collectors at Starbucks because I had no professional workspace. So I finally ended up getting a studio, and then things just kind of went from there and grew and grew and grew.
Excellent. So what was the biggest win very early on that really fed into your confidence to say, you know what? I'm going to double down and I'm going to work harder. I'm going to create more art. I know that this is going to be a profitable lifestyle for me. Tell us about that first big, huge win.
First big, huge win. I think it was more of an accumulation of small wins that was almost like reassuring me, like you're doing something right. You're on the right path. You're doing what you love, and you're grinding for yourself. That was something that I found in corporate America, where when I was at this advertising agency, it was so hard for me because there were times where I'd look around and I'd be like, this is kind of bullshit, right? Like, no one really wants to be here.
Yeah.
Like, everyone kind of seemed like kind of fake. Like, you can't really say what you want to say. You got to be like strategic in emails. And it just didn't feel, it wasn't my personality.
Yeah, it wasn't authentic.
No. And I was like, I feel like everyone around me is faking and no one is happy, you know? And so the other thing that drove me crazy is like, I was like, why do I have to ask off for vacation time and get it approved? I'm like, this is for the birds. I'm like, I'm going to go work for myself.
Yep.
I want to be in charge of my life. I want to make my own money. So the small wins, the development of the business over time, being able to increase my prices over time and having things still sell and having that demand still there was incredibly reassuring. Of, you know, it might be slow at the beginning, but keep going, and it's obviously building.
Did you align yourself with anyone in particular that kind of functioned as a funnel that was pushing people to your business and to your art? Was there maybe a mentor, or did you align with another studio that said, hey, look, there's this unique thing that you need to take a look at? Or it was all just homegrown?
It was homegrown.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Well, good. Was there ever a time that you maybe thought about throwing the towel very early on where you just wanted to give up?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Lots of times. There was one instance in particular. I was about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years into my business, and I was selling a lot of work, but I also had a lot of expenses. And I remember I was at the art store one day. I was trying to buy some frames, and my card declined. And I was like, well, that's weird. You know, that shouldn't happen. So I was like, well, run it again, you know, declined again. I'm like, shit. So I go in my car and I open up my banking information and it's literally $0 left in your account. And that was the first time where it hit me where of like, oh my God, you know, I've worked harder than most people I know for the last 2 years. And it's this constant balance of money coming in and money coming out that I have to spend in order to have, you know, to continue to grow. And it was a very pivotal moment for me where it was either, okay, what are we going to do now? You know, are we going to throw in the towel and go get a normal job? Or are we going to figure out a way to make this work? And I think that moment kind of lit a fire under me where it pissed me off so much. I'm like, this is never going to happen again.
Well, you didn't have anyone to blame but yourself, right?
Absolutely.
You were so narrowly focused on those damn frames that you didn't even think about the business aspect of it. Were you still living at home with the parents or were you out on your own?
Yes, at that point I was, yeah. Okay. So I was paying for rent in my studio, which at that point, you know, with art, it's really hard because there's no consistent income. Sure. Every month is wildly different. So for me to have the rent of a studio and then the rent of an apartment, 2 rents every month that I had to ensure I had in the bank was just, I wanted to rather save the money I was making and continue to invest. So yeah, living at home with my parents was a massive financial blessing for me. And yeah, I agree. It was one of those things where I had to take a look inward and say, all right, how are we going to start really managing the finance aspect of it and fine tune it so that it's profitable?
Well, excellent. Well, I know that whenever I, had met who was now my ex-wife, but she was my future wife at the time, right? And she was 25 years old. She had her own condo. She had her own career. These were all characteristics that, I was attracted to. She had her shit together, right? And I know that if she would have been living out of her art studio, right, with all her shit at her parents' house, didn't have, that recurring income, that would have really inhibited her ability to find a suitable partner that could evolve into a potential husband, right? And so it sounds like you made a lot of personal sacrifices very, very early on in order to say, hey, I'm going to become successful in my career, and then I could focus on, maybe building for the future. And so when was it that you said, hey, I think I may want to, pursue a relationship? Was there, again, a certain number in the bank? Was there a certain accomplishment that you had achieved to where you said, okay, I've met my goals. Now it's time to climb the next mountain? Give me some insight into that.
Yeah. I don't think it was any sort of goal in mind. I was, like you said, very focused on what I was doing, and I had relationships over the span of me building my career. The hardest thing that I found was, well, two things actually. The timing was very hard for me because I spend so much time alone in my studio working. A lot of times I go late into the night, or at least I did. I've learned how to turn that back a little bit. But I would come back and whoever I was dating at the time, I would have all this energy and I'd want to talk and like,
Yep.
oh my God, there's another human, And so I wanted to interact with them, but they had just had a very long day of corporate life and meetings and talking to people, and they wanted to shut down in the evening. So that was a very hard thing to learn how to kind of balance the fact that my lifestyle is very different from most people, and I have to be aware of that and respectful of that, and vice versa. So that was a really big thing. And another thing is it's just really hard when you're in a relationship to be able to connect with somebody because our careers are so different. My boyfriend right now, he's in sales and he does, valve sales and stuff. So he understands the sales side of things, which is nice because we can connect on that. But I've never had a relationship of any sort with a creative person, let alone a creative entrepreneur. So there can only be room for one.
Well, I was having this discussion last night with somebody that I'm casually talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And, she asked the pointed question. She said, what characteristics in a woman what attracts you and then what maintains your interest level?
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because no one had ever asked me that before, but I think I'm pretty self-aware just due to my self-work that I do with my executive coach, my life coach, my therapist.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. And so by her asking me that question, I said, I want to be with someone that I respect and admire in the areas where I want to improve.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So if I'm dating a girl and she's great at sales and she makes $500,000 a year, well, okay, that's all well and good, but like I'm good at sales.
Yeah.
I have a great career.
Yeah.
Right. And so when she asked me that question, I said, wow, I want to be with someone who lives a very healthy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Who lives a fitness-centered lifestyle and has amazing fashion, because those are three areas that I admire where I want to significantly improve. So if I'm with that person, right, they're going to motivate me and push me and inspire me to achieve my goals in that arena. And so it's very complementary, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's cool to say, okay, I'm with this corporate sales guy and you're the creative person, to where there's not necessarily an unhealthy balance of competition or feeling less than. And when you produce a masterpiece, he looks at it with the sparkle in his eye and goes, holy shit. I remember when you brought that home from Michael's and it was just a blank canvas. And he could see the journey. Right. And I think that's what we all kind of forget about, is the beauty is in the journey. Mm-hmm. Right. And so thank you for sharing that. And so you've been a little bit vulnerable today. You shared the story about your family friend who struggled with breast cancer. She was going through chemo, and then the lipstick. Yeah. That really was that thing that grounded her and gave her peace throughout the whole chemo process. And so I do want to ask you, do you think that being vulnerable and truly authentic and open, is that a sign of strength or is that a sign of weakness, and why?
I think it's definitely a sign of strength, but I do feel like there needs to be a balance. I find it hard to communicate with people who are not vulnerable, people who seem very shut off, very cold, very calculated, because I'm, like I told you, I'm Italian. I like to talk. I like to get to know people and make friends, and that's my energy. So when I bump into someone who's kind of like, chill out, I'm like, but why? Like, why don't you want to like get into deep conversations? Like, I understand there's a time and place for small talk, but I'm not a huge fan.
What do you think is a deep conversation? Ask me something deep that maybe you want to know.
Okay. Oh, hey, be careful.
Are we about to get into some deep, authentic, transparent?
So I will ask you something that it's something that I've always found confusing to me.
Okay.
And I'd be interested to hear your take on it. And it's something that I know people, when they listen in, it's going to make them uncomfortable at first. but there's a reason why I feel like people should talk about it more. Do you ever think about when you're going to die?
Never.
Really?
Not at all.
See, and this
You know
is
why?
why?
So when I got divorced, right, I had the divorce attorney.
Yeah.
We did the division of assets. We did all that. Then now I have all this money and a business and real estate. Then I had a wealth advisor.
Right.
And then the wealth advisor holds me accountable to meet with the trust and estate attorney, put together the will, the trust, everything, the insurance that pays for the taxes associated with my ex-wife inheriting my shares in the company. So I just know that at any given time, if I got hit by a bus, knock on wood, my family's taken care of. I feel like there's a positive association with my brand, that my company operates autonomously, independent of me, that those people will still stay employed. The organization will be profitable. And so I guess I would say I got my shit in order.
Okay. So let me ask you a second question.
Okay. Go ahead.
So most of that, which is great, but it's all logistical.
Life is logistical.
But what about what you've done in your life that's going to carry on after you're gone? Your legacy, how you made people feel, the way you treated people, the light that you're going to leave behind, the ripple of what you do in this life, that when you're gone, it's going to continue on and it's going to affect people, hopefully through your kids, for generations to come. I find it so interesting that every single person in this world, no matter your race, religion, ethnicity, socioeconomic background, it doesn't matter. The only thing every single person has in common is that we're all going to die. At some point, this life is going to be done. And people think and they plan for retirement so much more than they plan for what legacy do I want to leave behind? What's my impact? How do I want people to remember me? What's that energy I want to leave when I'm no longer here? And how is that going to carry on and benefit other people? And, you might not even make it to retirement age. Like you said, knock on wood, right? I don't want to get hit by a bus, but I just find it interesting. And I think obviously death is one of those things that it's scary for people to talk about. They feel uncomfortable. But I think people need to start getting a little bit more comfortable because it's going to affect the way you live your life. It's going to affect the way you treat people and the way that you pass on your knowledge and your expertise. And I just, you want to get deep? I'll get deep.
No, I like to get deep. But so I think I'm probably a bad person to ask because I think you and I are similar in that regard to where we have a clear definition of what is our mission, what is our vision, what are our goals, what is my why. Whenever I read the book, The Business Owner's Dilemma by my good friend Ali Nasser, who owns a wealth management firm here in Houston, it really forced me and encouraged me to identify what is my why, right? And so my why is to bring joy, smiles, and laughter to others, right? Because if I can constantly be that positive energy force into the lives of the people that I choose to spend my time with, that's the legacy in which I want to be known by, right? And I spend a large amount of my time with my children. And I want them to smile and laugh when they think of, okay, it's time to go over to Dad's house. Actually, last week, it's so funny. I was with my friend Caroline. We had just finished a pickleball session. We were driving back to her apartment. I was dropping her off at the James. And I get a phone call from my 8-year-old son. He says, "Hey, Dad." So what's up, buddy? Right? And he had just gotten his brother's hand-me-down Verizon Gizmo phone watch because his brother had gotten an Apple Watch for his 11th birthday.
Upgrade. Love it.
And so my kids, they rarely call me out of the blue. "Oh, what's up, buddy?" He goes, "Nothing, just playing soccer here in the driveway." "What are you doing, Dad?" So we start chatting. And then he says, "Dad, can you come pick me up?"
Oh.
I was like, "Well, buddy, it's already 8:30. By the time I get there, it's going to be 9, right? Then you're going to have to take a shower and get ready for bed. Is everything okay?" He's like, "Yeah, everything's fine. We just have more fun at your house." And that's no disrespect to my ex-wife. She's amazing, but they do chores, right? They have way more accountability at Mom's house. Than at Dad's house where we eat Chick-fil-A and drink fucking milkshakes. Right. Every single. And we play basketball and soccer and go on hikes and
Yeah.
go to Houston SaberCats games and Houston Dynamo games, right? And so that made me feel special.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize until just now was if my mission is to bring smiles and laughs into the lives of others, I think what it all boils down to is spending time with people that bring smiles to my face,
Yeah, absolutely.
that make me laugh,
Yeah.
that tell me that I'm cool,
Mhm.
that they like me and they want to hang out with me. And there's a million other people that they can choose to spend time with. But when they proactively reach out to me and not necessarily need me to pick up the tab at Steak 48
Yeah.
or Zonti, if they say, hey, Jeremy,
Just
let's
genuine
just go
time.
hang out,
Yeah.
scotch and cigars at
Yeah.
my place. That's my why. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for encouraging me to think about that.
Of course.
Well, good. Well, I know that you've got a ton of notoriety in the art community here in Houston. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I actually played pickleball with Danny Shaftel last night.
Yeah.
He's a tennis player.
Oh,
And
really? I
the
didn't know
first day that we played, he was horrible
Oh,
at
yeah.
pickleball.
He was
And then
swinging.
he just started watching Instagram videos and he comes back the next day and he's dominating. He still hasn't beat me yet.
That's awesome.
But anyways, so what I'm going to say is, you know, these past 10 years, I had no idea who you were.
Mhm.
Just like for the 10 years that I was married living in Katy, no one knew who I was. And now I'm this, you know, social single guy in Houston
Yeah.
that most people know. I guess my question for you is do people sometimes view you as an overnight success, and how does that make you feel?
I don't know. I would assume maybe some people do. Maybe some artists that are just starting out who might have stumbled across my work or, you know, my social media accounts. Maybe they look at where I'm at right now in my career and they think, you know, of an overnight success. I've been guilty of doing that with other artists that I look up to. It's overnight successes are hard because it happens. It does happen in the art world.
Okay.
It's very few and far between. You definitely want to be one of the ones.
I think about music artists, and the overnight success to me was Taylor Swift when she was 14, 15 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Just blowing up, singing about Tim McGraw with her
Right.
little guitar.
Right.
Right. Now she's the most famous recording artist probably in history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I think especially with art, it comes to being seen and noticed by the right people. And marketing yourself towards the right people and being able to grow in that way. But I will put on record, it was not an overnight success. It's still not an overnight success.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really am proud of myself on is my work ethic. I work constantly. I work on the weekends. I work on, you know, I don't take vacations so that I can take that money and reinvest. I'm always trying to grow because I have such big goals and dreams and aspirations. And I know if I don't get myself there, no one's going to get me there. No one's going to help me. And I think that's kind of a mindset that I had to put myself into early on in my career just to survive and get to where I am today. And, you know, it's a lot of resilience. It's a lot of determination. I have a weird irk with the word talented.
Okay.
Because, and I understand because I use it all the time. I think it's just a natural thing that you kind of throw out when you see someone who's doing something that you can't really like fathom doing. You're like, oh, you're so talented.
LeBron James.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I found with that word over the years that there comes with this undertone that you're talented, you're gifted. It's something that you've always had in you. It's just easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't take into account all of the countless sacrifices I've made to get to where I am. And so I think, and I've started kind of changing my vocabulary when I talk to other creatives and when I see their work, something that I know would have taken such a long time to create, I'll message them or something and I say, oh my God, I love your work. It's so beautiful. Like, you're so resilient. I know that took you forever.
Oh,
or
wow.
You're so determined in your craft. Like, good on you. You know, I try to make sure that I honor the fact that it's not just talent. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Lots of tears. More tears probably than blood and sweat.
Yeah.
But it's a very emotional process. And so I'm trying to be more careful on throwing the word talented around because I don't ever want it to discredit from the actual work that goes into it.
Interesting. That's a great share. Thank you for sharing
Of
that. So
course.
resilience is actually one of our company core values.
Oh, perfect.
That's out on the wall over
Yeah.
there. And we can talk about that in a little bit. But by you sharing your story, you'd mention, hey, I have to make all these sacrifices. I don't go on vacations. I reinvest the profits. No one's going to do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I vividly remember I dated a girl in 2021. She was in grad school, but she had a degree in music from the University of North Texas. And she was an extremely talented singer and musician. And she actually had a band.
Mm-hmm.
And 24, 25 years old. And I fell in love with this young woman.
Yeah.
And I told her, I want to invest in your music career, right? Because this was something that I admired, that would be something that I thought was very unique and inspirational. And I couldn't wait to market her to the community, right? And she basically said, no. She said, I have to do it on my own. Mm-hmm. That robs me of the joy and the confidence and the sense of accomplishment whenever I actually get it done, right? And so it's funny because I'll just say, okay, beautiful young women have access to successful men where maybe money is the least valuable resource that they have because they have an abundance of it, right? There comes a point in time where our friendships are more meaningful than the money or our health, right? Or the reputation. But in that specific scenario, it actually helped increase the perception that I have of her because she needed to do it on her own. And then it makes me think about my relationship when I met my ex-wife when I was 24 years old, who's still one of my very best friends. But the 12 years that we spent together, we started off as these, early career people.
Right.
And we didn't have anything. She probably had $80,000 in student debt, right? And she's a petroleum engineer and she was just hustling and grinding, climbing that corporate ladder, but we were doing it together, right? And then we bought a house, bought a second house, and then we started a family and we started investments and we did all of this together. And there was this sense of accomplishment and this sense of pride that I still carry and associate with her today because we did it together. It wasn't somebody else just providing it for me. And so I'll tell you, in my experience, when you are on the other side of that success mountain, right, it's going to be way more worth it because you did it on your own.
Exactly.
Some rich old gray haired guy didn't just buy you the studio and pay for the Instagram likes.
Oh yeah. No, right? I completely agree. And I've had that conversation, even before with my parents. There was at one point earlier on in my career where, my parents have been very smart with their money while we were growing up to make sure that they had a cushion if their children ever needed help, moving on in life. And I was at a point where I was struggling and I was just trying to make ends meet. And I was doing everything I could to get sales and to get commission work and really putting myself out there. And my mom had sat me down and she said, hey, listen, your father and I, we've been saving money over the years for opportunities like this. We want to help you. We want to give you some amount of money. You can pay us back over time if you want, or you don't have to pay us back at all, whatever you feel comfortable with. But this is something we want to do to help you. And I told her, and, looking back, it was a much harder thing to do in the moment because I was like, oh, finally a lifeline, But I told her, I said, I think in the long run, you're going to hurt me more than help me. Because if I know I have you as a cushion to continue to feed me financially, my motivation's going to go down. My hustle's going to go down. I'm not going to be hungry enough to go out and get it myself. And that's what I need. I need to be able to build this on my own. And, God forbid if something catastrophic happened, it's such a blessing to know that I do have my parents there to help me if I ever needed it. If I ever got myself into a financial situation, they're kind enough to have saved over the years to be able to help me through that. But yeah, it was not something that I wanted. I was like, no, please no.
Well, that's awesome. And that's very self-empowering. The fact that you had that discipline and you channeled that resilience is the word that you used in order to do it on your own. And so I do want to ask you, in what ways do you believe that art and creativity play a role in maybe even healing or empowering others?
Oh, gosh. how does it not play a role?
So I will tell you
Yeah.
that art doesn't really speak to me.
Yeah.
Okay. I can admire the vibe, right?
Right.
You know, the kind of art that I resonate with. I was actually at Sawyer Yards yesterday at the silos, and it was like very urban, very vibey. The colors were vibrant.
Yeah.
And the word that I would use associated with the wall art that I noticed in the suite that I went to was just the word swagger, right? But I
Mhm.
think that maybe the reason why that's what spoke to me is because, you know, I think at this point in life, maybe it's me still wanting to stay young, but
Yeah.
I have a little swag and I want
Yeah.
to embrace that,
Yeah.
right? But does it mean different things to different people based on whatever they're going through during that season of life? What's your experience?
Absolutely. The hard thing with art is that it's simply subjective. It's very much perceived value. Not a lot of people, for example, people like to spend their money in different ways, right? Some people like buying clothes, some people like buying real estate, some people like yourself like buying nice watches and things like that, and some people love buying art. So obviously that's great because there's a very, very healthy art market. But the kind of art that I believe is the most impactful is something that you look at that evokes some sort of emotion out of you, whether it's a memory or a feeling or some sort of human response. And it's not even something where I have to have that, I have to buy it, but it's something that you get to be present with in that moment and it affects you for that short amount of time. That's it. Um, some people will go off on tangents on what art's supposed to mean, and they'll go into these like very long, drowned out like explanations. And for me, the value I find with my art and the people around me is it's a way for me to visually show love and support and encouragement for people who are going through a hard time.
Mm.
And if you look at my paintings and you see anything else, amazing. Like that's the point of art. It's supposed to be different for everybody. But they always say like we have to send in art bios when you apply for different
Yeah.
grants or shows or things like that. Some people have this super long, drowned out explanation of their art, this massive thesis. And I'm like, I want my art to be beautiful. I want people to look at it and to feel loved and to feel supported and to feel warm inside. And it's as simple as that.
So I'll turn it around on you.
Okay.
On saying, remember how I was like, maybe it spoke to me because that's what I need and that's what I want. Maybe you want to feel beautiful and you want to feel loved and you want to feel worthy.
Maybe, yeah.
Right? Have you ever psychoanalyzed yourself like that?
I think that there's a part of my art that craves human connection.
Okay.
And that's definitely a part of my lifestyle that's been missing for as long as I've been doing art.
Ever since you've been solo in the studio.
Exactly. And, that's one of the things that I really miss about having a corporate job is I miss coworkers. I miss not necessarily having a boss, but I miss having people to kind of talk to and chat with and bounce ideas off of. And so I think my work is a way to reach out to a community and start a dialogue and a way for me to feel like I'm still connected to the world around me, even though I'm within these four walls, which feels like 24/7, by myself. So yeah.
Well, good
point.
Well, excellent. I know the art that I'm consuming a lot of right now is music, right?
Yeah.
Because the music is certainly a form of art, I would say. It speaks to me. It induces a
very
certain
powerful.
emotion. I'm on my breakup playlist, right? So there's a lot of
I've been there.
Parker McCollum, Handle on You, right? And some other songs like that. But I scrolled down and was looking at your lipstick series you talked about earlier. I do want to ask you, how has your lipstick series evolved over the last 10 years? And then what are maybe your plans for its continued growth?
Yeah, I'd say the evolution has definitely come through technical evolution. That's one aspect, as well as the evolution of subject matter.
So when you say technical, so like actually making prints and selling prints or selling digital rights, or what do you mean by technology?
So by technical, no, I'm meaning more craftsmanship.
Interesting.
Technical. Yes.
So you mean you don't just use a little lipstick stick? There's other stuff too?
No, there's only lipstick sticks.
Okay.
Yes, there's only tubes of lipstick. But it's more so learning and progressing and developing my skill in how to work with that lipstick. Because lipstick is not a conventional medium, when I first started working with it, it was very elementary. It was very rough. I had not figured out how to utilize it in a way where I could create the images that I wanted to create that were in my head. I just couldn't figure out the application process to get them there. So over the years, I've developed lots of different techniques and tricks and things on how to actually go from the lipstick tube form onto the canvas and get the look and the effects and the aesthetics that I'm going for. So that's developed with time, just as anything does, right? Like pickleball, you start off and you suck, and then you get better over time. Some people like Danny get better overnight, but, and so it's a natural progression. And then the other aspect of it, there is a business aspect of the bringing on prints and reproductions. That's something that I started doing to, one, market myself organically through people purchasing and sharing my work with others. And two, I wanted to give the breast cancer community an option to take something that is not nearly as expensive as an original piece of work, which is a luxury purchase, and to be able to take that and to gift it to someone who's going through breast cancer. I wanted to be able to benefit that side of the community as well. So yeah, different types of growth. Well,
that's one thing that, I followed you on social media for a couple of months, and I didn't know that a portion of your proceeds goes to supporting the research for breast cancer. Right. And so I do want to commit. I would like to buy some lipstick to support this growth.
Oh, thank you.
And so hopefully you have a resource to post where we can just drop ship it directly to you. But I do want to ask you, so you're talking a lot about your evolution as an artist, right? And as a technician, but let's talk about maybe your evolution as an administrative person, the person that's handling the technology side of your business, maybe even the administrative side. Do you outsource that? Do you have somebody to take that off your plate, or is that still something that you manage on your own?
Yeah, I had managed it on my own. Administrative side, yes, I still do everything. I do.
You don't want someone to miss a zero on an invoice, right? Yeah.
I do all the admin stuff. I do website. I do tech. I do newsletters. I do the actual printing of my reproductions. I do the, cut, bag, ship, all of it.
This sounds like a big bottleneck that could be eliminated.
Yeah. And I finally hired on these wonderful ladies to help me with social media because I got myself to a point where I was so overwhelmed with my to-do list that I wasn't actually getting any painting done. I would spend all day doing everything else to keep the business running. And then I'd be like, shit, I did no painting for the last 3 days, So it was very much came out of necessity. These ladies had come into my studio. They loved my work. They loved my art. And they were willing to work with me. Because I told them, I said, listen, my hesitation with hiring people on is that my income's always inconsistent. And I'm working to get to a place where it's more consistent, especially when the dream is to have a wait list, right? Yeah. That's kind of like the dream for me, for sure. And so I said, I'm good with not taking a salary. I've never really taken a salary. I've always put all of my money back into growing it. But having that extra stress of now I have to pay these women who are doing incredible work, it was a lot of give and take, right? It was very stress inducing, but at the same time, it really helped to motivate me to, get my ass in gear, because now you got to make sure that these women get paid. You got to make sure that, we're progressing and moving forward. So hiring them on was a massive advantage to being able to get back to the creative work, which is what I'm supposed to be doing. And that was something that they told me. They're like, let us handle social media. I still do all my stories. I still do all my replies. I like having that personal connection with my followers. I don't ever want it to feel like anyone else is running my account. Certainly, yeah. But they are really good with scheduling out my posts. They do all the photos, all the videos. So it's not something where I'm in the studio and I'm like, shit, I have to post something. I haven't posted something in 5 days. Like, let me set up this janky tripod and try to, it looks so much more professional now.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
It's so funny. I
helps.
resonate with that. So I really enjoy social media.
Yeah.
I think that you can create real friendships and relationships and connections with people just from an ad, right?
Yeah.
Like actually double tap add them. And so when they follow your persona for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, they develop a relationship, right?
Right.
They're looking forward to it, right? To where when they finally do meet you in person, there's that history, right?
Yeah.
It's like they've been along for the journey, and that develops a really close connection. And then it accelerates, I guess, the time that it takes to develop intimacy, right? Like you and I right now being vulnerable with each other just because we kind of already knew each other.
Yeah.
But it's so funny because myself as an entrepreneur, I still handle all the replies for Encore Search, obviously for my personal name, and for the Path to Success podcast. I have nothing to do with the actual posts. It's so funny. Our digital marketing manager, Gabe, will put together something, a quote of me, maybe a video of me. The first time that I see it is whenever everyone else sees it, right? So you do have to be, not be so egotistical to where it has to be perfect the exact way that you did it, right? And you just know that, hey, if my followers want to see it, right? If they're still following it and didn't unfollow, then it doesn't matter. It's 10 out of 10 the exact way that I did it. But
that's
what I wanted to say. Hold on. Are you struggling with that right now?
No.
What it's so funny. I had KK on the podcast last week, multimillionaire, very successful cardiologist.
Yeah.
Well, his dad founded House of Pies.
Right. I remember you saying that.
He still replies. He's the House of Pies guy that replies.
I love it.
A cardiologist that owns multi-center heart and vein places, right? That my friend, George Joseph, multi-millionaire restaurateur, he owns several drug and rehab recovery centers called Positive Recovery Centers. He owns Common Bond, Brasserie and Bistro.
Way.
George,
I love Common.
He's the one who replies as Common Bond. It's ridiculous. But again, there's that connection there. The people that figured it out was Dave Thomas, right? With Wendy's. He's like, we'll just put some smart ass on it and we'll go viral by just being sassy all the time.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, what were you going to say? You're going to cut me
off?
Well,
no, I was going to laugh because the women that work with me, I'm sure the second they hear what you said, they're going to laugh because I am a perfectionist.
Oh no.
Yes.
And that explains why you've been doing it 10 years. I've been doing it 10 years. I have 39 employees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that run solo recruiting shops because they're perfectionists. But what I've found, again, art is completely different. You can't train somebody to do, but I can train someone how to make cold calls, what to say, how to find people to say it to, right? But again, the way that I make money is the more people that know me and know what I do, right?
Yeah.
And all the chatter that goes around from a center of influence, right? That's ultimately going to create revenue for me. And so the marketing aspect is more valuable than me doing art.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so that's what I focus on. And then I found that my recruiters, maybe they're 70% as good as me, maybe, right? There's some that are 95%. I don't want to offend anyone. And there's probably one or two that are 120% as good as me that run their own business units. But what I was going to say is when I compound that and go 30 people times 70% as good as me, that's 21 times the production of what I could yield at 100% of my own.
Yeah. That's something about having an art career that is quite difficult because the creative side, if like you said, you can't train other artists to do it. There are some artists out there who are very successful who have a team that will go in that paints the backgrounds of things and get things ready for them. And they go in and do all the finishing touches and they're able to be much more prolific. The hard thing with lipstick is to train someone on how to work with lipstick. I mean, it took me since 2014 to figure that out. Not to say that it would take me that long to train somebody, but it's not something that I can pass off as easily. Now, the marketing aspect and the Instagram aspect, I could pass that off. And the ladies that work with me know that was a very hard thing for me to do because when you build something for so long by yourself and you're used to having your hands on everything, we're constantly doing quality control, right? And especially as an artist, I notice all the little things that no one else would notice.
Yep.
And it's, it works to my advantage in art, but it is a disadvantage when it comes to other things. So it's been very much a growing pains for me passing that off, but I know it's in the best interest of my business, and it gives me more creative freedom to actually paint, which is where the money comes in. So
Certainly.
yeah.
Well, you'd mentioned earlier about you saying, I want to create beauty, right? In your art bio. And so I think that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. We all know that,
Yeah.
right? And so I want to ask you, what does beauty mean to you?
Interesting question.
Did you just answer it in your head and then censor yourself? Like, I don't want to say that.
No, I think, like you said, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right?
Okay.
I think there's visual beauty, right? Like things that we're visually attracted to, art, cars, homes, things of that nature. But I think, in my personal opinion, true beauty is loving people. I think there's something so beautiful about looking out for your neighbor, for your friend, for your partner, and being present, loving them, supporting them, encouraging them, and motivating and inspiring people. I think that's the most beautiful thing in the world.
That is an action, though, right? So if you're saying that person is exhibiting beauty, they're beautiful if they're kind, attentive, complimentary.
100%.
But when you said earlier, oh, that artwork, I know how resilient you were to create that beautiful piece.
Yeah.
So you're saying the act of you building them up is beauty, or how is the art?
Yeah, I'd say the art is the visual beauty.
It's the visual inducement of the emotion of beauty.
Yes.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. So I want to answer it in a very different way. We have different points of view. I've had this discussion many, many times.
Okay.
I believe that beauty is admiring something in its natural form, right? So this is going to rub a lot of people the wrong way, but hair extensions, lip filler, cheek filler, literally remanufacturing your face, tons of makeup. Maybe that's sexy, but I don't perceive that as beauty, right? Beauty to me is admiring something in its natural form, all the flaws and all. That's beauty to me, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's not just women and physical appearance. I don't mean it that way, but like, let's say that in nature, if I go to this badass Laguna pool that's down in Texas City, that's this amazing man-made creation, might be cool.
Yeah.
Might be fun. But when I go to the pond, right, where over the last thousands of years, it's created erosion and all this stuff, and it's in its natural habitat and all of these organic creatures that live there, that's beautiful to me because it's natural.
Yeah.
That's what I found, at least in myself, is natural beauty, right?
Right.
And so that's one thing that you can't manufacture. Let's say somebody's heart, right? Their character, that's what I think I'm perceiving as beauty, because you can't manufacture that.
Right. No, and I totally agree with you. Natural beauty, and it's unfortunate nowadays, especially.
And that's why an original art piece is much more beautiful than a print to me.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, but I agree with you. Natural beauty there is something to be said about that, especially in a day and age where you can manufacture beauty, cultural's version of beauty. But I think with like I said, the knowing someone's heart and their intention, you might see the most naturally beautiful woman, but if she's mean and cruel and rude, that beauty doesn't mean what it did before, right? Like they almost have to go hand in hand. And that's something, especially like you said with my original paintings, where there is beauty in it being an original. The fact that it's not a reproduction means that is something as an artist that my heart and my soul went into for X amount of time. It's become a part of me that I now get to give to you, that you get to enjoy for years to come. And my paintings are very personable to me. Like I've had, a lot of artists struggle with actually selling their work because they love it so much they don't want to give it away. It's a part of them. And then the added aspect that the lipsticks that I work with are donated to me means that I not only have the visual beauty of a beautiful painting, but the fact that I get to facilitate 80, 60, 50 different women into one painting. All of a sudden, that original means way more than it did. It's not just a pretty picture. There's different women's lives that are in that painting.
So you're saying the lipstick that was donated on behalf of this individual, 50, 60 people are going into the actual art.
Yes, exactly. And I get, like I said, they're all donation based. So sometimes I open up boxes of lipstick and, I check all of them, quality control. And a lot of times I'll notice the indentation of the woman's lip. And it came with a letter that this woman passed from breast cancer. And I think about the fact that, wow, like she used this tube of lipstick, and this tube of lipstick had a life of its own before it ever got in my hands. And I wonder where she wore this. I wonder if she wore it to her son's wedding or her daughter's graduation. I wonder if she wore it when she was celebrating something in life or mourning something in life. And it's such a beautiful concept and aspect to the work. And I've had a lot of people over the years that are like, you have to get a big time sponsorship, get in touch with Sephora, get in touch with MAC, and get a massive lipstick brand to sponsor you because, oh my God, they'll be able to give you so much exposure and free marketing. And I'm like, oh, you lose the human aspect. That's what I love.
I literally have goosebumps on you telling that story. That is amazing.
Thank you. It's my favorite part of the work.
So how can listeners of today's podcast directly to support the initiative and contribute to your success?
So a couple different ways. Obviously, purchasing of the art. I do have reproductions available on my website. I also have originals available for sale. And if you don't want to purchase anything, you can, social media. You can follow me, share my stuff with friends or family, and really just help me to market my work and my mission and get it out there. You can also donate lipstick yourself. I do have a section on my website that has the address of the studio. So if you want to go gather up some old lipstick and send them my way, I'd be happy to take them off your hands and make something beautiful with them. But yeah, it's really just getting my work out there.
So what is the website? Did we talk about that?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
It's www.paintedwithlipstick.com.
Painted with Lipstick.
Yes.
Excellent. So we talked earlier about legacy and how you want to be remembered. And so I don't want to ask a lady how old she is. So let's just use a round number. In 50 years from now, let's say we're saying your eulogy.
Yeah.
How would you like to be remembered at that point?
I would like to be remembered as someone who was kind, loving, someone who would stop what they were doing to help somebody else, even if I'm busy. I would like to be remembered as someone who gave and helped people who couldn't give or help me in return. I'd like to be remembered as someone who encouraged and hopefully in the future mentored young creatives and artists, and not even creatives and artists, but women. Like I am such a supporter of women following their dreams and starting businesses and go after what you want in life. And I have been through the roller coaster of being an entrepreneur, having your own business, and being an artist. And there's so much knowledge that I've gained from that experience that I want to share with others. And I want to help their journey be a little less bumpy than mine was. And yeah, I would like that what I do in this life and on earth to, I want my ripple effect after I'm gone to grow into a tsunami of impact. And that's it.
Well, you started with one tube of lipstick at a time.
Yeah.
And so I want to make a proposal and I hope you say yes.
Okay.
So I just closed on a new house on Tuesday.
Okay.
And it's in River Oaks.
Yeah.
Big, beautiful house, big backyard, pool. And I want to start hosting parties.
Okay.
And I have a proposal for you. I would like for you to bring some key pieces of art for you to have on display. We'll do an art show of yours at my home.
Oh
And I will
Thank
invite
you.
all of my entrepreneur friends. I'll cover the expense of the hors d'oeuvres and the champagne.
Oh,
And I want to have an art show at my house. I moved. So I'm doing a 3-month lease back. So I won't move
Okay.
until late November, but maybe we could look at maybe around the holidays.
Yeah.
I think that would be sweet.
I would love
and
that.
we'll give you an opportunity to share your story and your vision. And I can't wait to tell all of my friends all
Oh.
about Painted with Lipstick.
Thank you so much. That's such a kind offer, honestly. I would love to do a party.
Awesome. We'll see you soon.
Yes, thank you.